Well, thank you everybody for joining us today on the show and welcome. Joining me is my guest, Dominiece Clifton. And Dominiece is a business coach, spiritual guide, author, speaker, and a lifelong learner, which I can totally relate to, on a mission to guide others to remember their gifts and their power so that they can live a life of freedom and fulfillment. And Dominiece, welcome. I'm just going to talk you up a little bit because I've got so much wonderful stuff to share about you, but thank you for joining me.
Carol, thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you and be in conversation and community today.
Yeah, and I've just so many things I want to share. So Dominiece is the founder of Move and Still, the Nourish Wellness Collective. She too is a host of a podcast called The School of Healing and an author, the author of Hold Space to Heal. And I love the way you describe that your work lies at this intersection of connection, community, and change, and that you work with empowering women entrepreneurs to build not only aligned and sustainable businesses, but also that supports organizations by offering tools to help them prioritize mindfulness and healing. And so I popped over to Dominice's website and I just pulled out their vision because I thought this is just so beautiful. And so what she had then, I'm going to read it to you, is our vision, a better world for all. Imagine a world where deep breathing was taught in all schools and kids learned at a young age how to regulate their bodies. Imagine a world where mindfulness was incorporated into the workday and working professionals were encouraged to pause and regulate their bodies. Imagine a world where first responders and police officers paused to take a deep breath in the face of a fearful situation. And imagine a world where everyone had access to simple tools and resources to manage their physical and mental health more effectively. That is just so powerful and so all-encompassing. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Gosh, when you put a website together, it's like these things are on your heart and you share them, but I don't visit my website often. And so my mission, my vision, like those things are very clear, but even just hearing you read that, it made me smile because I'm like that. Yes. Like that is why I started Moving Still. It was really just about easy ways to provide access to people and practical strategies, nothing that's too complicated. And so hearing you read that and just reminding me of like, that's why you're doing this every day, it made my heart smile. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, absolutely. And that is so important. We often, we lose touch with our why sometimes. And, reconnecting with our why does. It just brings the joy and the motivation. And because not every day is an easy day. I mean, we're
No.
not all, on top of the mountain and on the top of the wave, but there are times that you sink to the bottom of that wave and you've got to pick yourself up and keep going. But Dominiece, you shared, and we just chatted about this briefly, that your grandmother visited you during a meditation and you felt then that being on autopilot and not feeling worthy. Share a little bit with that with us. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So I have a picture of my grandmother here on my altar, and I come in every morning and greet her and speak to her. And she's an ancestor now, so she's no longer with us, but she's been such a pivotal part of my journey, not being here with me in the spirit realm, really working on my behalf. And so it's been 15 years this year since she passed away. 7 years ago, she came to me in a meditation. It was 2017, or I don't know if that's 8 years now, but end of 2017, December of 2017, I was meditating, and I was at a point in my life where I had just been existing. I was really numb, asking the question, God, is this it? Like, is this really all that I signed up for? Like, just not feeling happy with my job, my marriage, my financial circumstances. I was just tired of being tired and fighting the same battles and not winning at anything. And I started meditating because I didn't really know what else to do. I just felt called to stillness about a year before when I was pregnant with my daughter in 2016. And so it was a new relationship with meditation. And she came to me just as almost as clear as you and I are having this conversation, and sat with me. And I joke and say that I was summoned essentially to jump into the work that I'm doing now, because for me, I felt like it was a reminder of, you have greater work to do and it's time to get started. And so there were things that were said and shared at that time, but the underlying message when I go back and read that journal entry was, it's time, right? Like you feel not aligned and you're not fulfilled because you're not doing what you were called to do and what you are intended to do and what your soul came here to do. And so that conversation and that whisper that she came to me and visited me, it was really the start of the path that I'm on now. And so I joke and say my grandmother she had a very like bossy personality. So I'm like, she summons me to get started, but she really did give me the nudge that I needed to get going.
To move, and I love
Yeah.
what you're just sharing now, because that's such a beautiful picture. In the positive intelligence program that we use for helping you build a positive mindset, one of the powers that we invite you is to consult with your elder, wiser self. And you were blessed to have your grandmother have that interaction with you, but just to empower people to spend some time that you could sit and try to visualize or to meet with your elder wiser self and get some wisdom as to what is important and what do you need to let go of, and find that joy to move you into the next step and what you want to do with your life. And I know one of the things that often becomes, if we now look at with the business hat on and talking to our solopreneurs and our entrepreneurs, that this comparison in business and this imposter syndrome, why do you think so many people get lost and spiral down into this trap of comparison?
So it's interesting, your comment before this question. I will answer the question, but I was going to say I appreciate the framework that you use with consulting your elder self and really guiding people to be and sit with themselves for the answers, right? Like I was going to say that, and then here we are with this question, which is the perfect segue. I think that I firmly believe that we have all the answers that we need within us, and what we don't have, right? Like the universe spirit will provide and give to us if we are open to receive it. I think that oftentimes, and I will speak from my own experience, that when I was caught up in comparison and when I was caught up in the noise and distraction of what everyone else was doing, I didn't know myself well enough. I didn't trust myself well enough. And I hadn't done enough of my own self-discovery work to fully understand who I was. And so I was seeking answers externally. I was seeking validation externally. I was looking for the business coach or the mentor who could tell me what my purpose was and who could help me to figure out what I needed to do. And that's really not what other humans are like able to do. Like, no one can give you your purpose because your purpose is your purpose, right? Like I believe that there's spirit or higher power source, however you want to identify that higher power, gives each of us a different assignment. And so, Carol, I couldn't come to you and say, can you help me? Can you tell me my purpose? You can maybe give me tools and resources to figure it out, but that's for me to figure out. And so I think that whenever we are finding ourselves lost in comparison and again, just getting distracted by what everyone else is doing and trying to take a little bit from here and take a little bit from here and piecemeal it all together, that is a sign that you need to be still and be with yourself. You have to go inward to seek the answers that you are looking for and that you need. And again, right, I am a coach. And so I believe in getting guidance from other folks, but as a coach, I can't tell you what you are intended to do. I can provide you with the resources that will help you to find those answers. And I think that's what any good coach or mentor does. They essentially are a guide for you. But yeah, for years, Carol, for years, like my first 4 years of entrepreneurship was being caught up in not feeling good enough and being an imposter and not being clear on who I was. And again, scrolling social media and seeing what all the other coaches were doing and trying to do those things. And I was burned out and exhausted from it and really tired of just that work. And it wasn't until I quit because I was so tired of it. I stepped away and, went and started moving still, which we've talked about. I started working full time. It wasn't until I had that moment to be still and be with myself that those answers started coming to me. And so if you're looking for answers, the greatest thing that you can do is just be still, open yourself up to receive, and whatever you're looking for, you'll find it.
I love, Dominiece, what you shared then, because it's that feeling of losing yourself. You've lost your identity while you are allowing these negative thoughts to spiral in your head that I'm not good enough and I can't do this. And stopping for a moment, as you said, to just realize how unique you are. Each person that's listening to this episode, you are unique. You do have gifts.
Yes.
And bringing up some empathy, some self-compassion, some self-love, and you're good enough.
Yes.
So I agree with you. The coach helps you perhaps find a purpose or where you're going to put yourself. But there's enough space in the world for each and every one out there to contribute and to journey with others on their journey.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, when you are in a state of comparison, there's this scarcity mindset of, oftentimes, not always, but there's the scarcity mindset, which leads to jealousy and envy that this person is doing this thing. That jealousy and envy oftentimes is like a little spark in you that says, hey, you can do that too, right? And so
Right.
we have to recognize that each of us has our own rhythm or our own secret sauce. And there can be someone who might be doing something similar to you, but no one can ever do what you do. There's going to
Mhm.
be folks that resonate with your message and your energy, Carol, and there's going to be folks that resonate with me. And what we have to realize is that people need help. Like, so many people are seeking answers, and so many people want to come out of the space that they're in. And there's so many souls that are seeking guidance. And so we're not in competition, right? Like, we are all here to liberate one another and to help one another be our greatest selves. And so when you realize that, there's an abundance, there's enough for us all to win, like that is how the universe is designed, you stop feeling like you need to compare yourself to other people, because you realize the greater mission is that people come out of their struggles and their situations, and each of us offers a unique way to do that, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing I think of when you're sharing that is this imposter syndrome. It stops us in our tracks, and therefore we don't make progress. We don't start because we then want the perfect business. We want the perfect, everything lined up perfectly. And so we allow that self-doubt to stop us from even stepping out there. And I think to remind yourself that there's always somebody out there that needs to hear from you. And it's different people for, we don't all align with the same people,
Mhm.
but to not let this imposter syndrome stop you in your tracks, and take the baby step and move yourself forward. Now, I know you spoke about, and I'd love to know, you have an acronym CLEAR as a goal framework, because this, to me, setting
Mhm.
goals and taking action is what can move you out of being stuck with the imposter syndrome umbrella over your head. Tell us a little bit more about this framework that you use.
Yeah, so I am a very I have a lot of masculine energy in my astrology chart. Like, I'm just a natural doer, achiever. I've always been that way. I'm actually learning to be softer, right? Like, I'm in a season of learning to soften, but I am a naturally goal-oriented person. So I've always been someone who, if I set goals, like if I'm clear on what I need to do, if I'm clear on what I need to do, I can execute that thing at a high level. And so I used to follow the SMART goals framework, and then a couple of months ago I started getting this download for like a slightly different variation, which has now become the clear goals framework. And clear is an acronym, so the C in clear stands for your cause, right? And so what that means is, when you're starting with a goal, you first want to start with your why. We've talked about that with the mission of Move and Still. Before you start to think about all the things that you want to do, why is this goal important to you? So I think getting really clear on the cause as the first part of goal setting is important. And then you move to the L, which is level up. And so that means, how does this goal challenge you? Does this goal challenge you? Does this goal excite you, right? Like in a way where it stretches you, right? Because you don't want it to be too easy where it's not out of your comfort zone. And so you move to L, level up, making sure that the goal challenges you. The E is in game. So be very clear about your specific in game. A lot of times when we set goals, for example, I used to struggle with my weight. I just want to lose weight. But like, what does that even mean? Like, how many pounds do you want to lose, or how do you want to feel? Or is it that there's a pair of jeans that are hanging in your closet that you want to get into? So you have to be very specific about what your end game is when you start a goal, and really defining that, because fuzzy targets never really get hit, right?
They
Like, if
don't
you are
motivate
unclear,
you. Right.
they don't motivate you, right? Like, the
Yeah.
universe isn't really clear on what you want, so it can't
So
support
how
you. And
can
so
you
you have to
be?
be
Yeah.
right. And so you have to be very specific about what the end game is and really outlining that. And then you have the A, which is accountability. And I think that this is what distinguishes this framework from some of the other ones out there, is that I ask you to think about your accountability. So whether that's a self accountability system where you have some sort of weekly check-in and some sort of metric process, if you're at the space where you can hold yourself accountable, or on the flip side of that, if you recognize that that is where you struggle, finding support and accountability and identifying that with the goal. So that might mean, hey, I'm going to start trying to save, X amount of dollars per paycheck. Can you help me to be accountable to this? Can we check in on this, right? Like, identifying a person or people who can support you in this goal. And then R is about the results and just making sure that you're tracking. The way that I do this is that I follow a similar framework as the 12-week year, where I set 3 goals for the quarter, and then I check in on those goals every week for 12 weeks. And that allows me to remain accountable to coming back to these goals and making sure that I'm moving the needle. And so I've been doing this framework. I've been sharing it with family, friends, clients, and literally it's clear, right? So once you get that clear on your goal, you are much more motivated to actually see this goal through, and it's top of mind for you because you're checking in on it consistently. And I found it to be such a helpful goal setting process for me on a quarterly basis to maximize on taking action on the things that I'm trying to achieve.
Wow, that is, yeah, and that sort of thing. So when people are struggling and they sort of feel, oh my goodness, this is all just too much, do you have a baby step where you suggest they can just start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the greatest thing about like this word clear is really starting with, again, think there's a lot of goals, right? Like we can be setting goals forever. I like to start with the low hanging fruit. So like
Mm,
what are the easiest things or goals, that maybe 2 or 3 goals that you can start with, whether it's personal, professional, what can you start with that's going to build momentum, right? So maybe if, let's just say, if you are starting with weight loss, and I'm always going to come back to this because this was something that I struggled with for a long time. I believe in starting small and building momentum, and that's the way that I teach in my coaching program also. And so I would not advise someone to start with, I'm going to work out every day for an hour and a
right.
half and
Yeah.
change my eating completely. It's like, just pick one thing to start with
Mhm.
and do that consistently. And so it could just be, I'm going to commit to walking for 10 minutes every day, or 10 minutes of, a few days a week. And again, being very specific about what the end goal is and what the actions are going to be that you're going to take, and then do that consistently, because once you start to keep your word, you're more excited, right? Like you're starting to prove to yourself that I can do this. And that's going to make you want that, you're going to have the momentum to take on the bigger goals. And so my biggest
Mhm.
advice is to start small with low hanging fruit, and then just allow yourself to build from there.
Yeah, I love that. Because Dominique, when you share that, I'm thinking, and the other part to put in, because you have to start small. You'll get yourself so
Yeah.
discouraged if you put this huge big goal and then you don't
Yeah.
start and you put it off to the next day, but to also celebrate along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And to,
Mm-hmm.
embody that in your body. And that, so it's interesting. We have something called Sage Steps, and it's just 10 seconds of recognizing that you're being sabotaged and you're going off in a different direction. Bring yourself back, but then celebrate the fact that you recognize that. And
Yeah.
it could be something as simple as just smiling to yourself and going, I did it. I
Yeah.
did it. And if you're more
Yeah.
energetic, it might be something like you're going to jump up and down and dance around. But remembering to celebrate those wins, I think, helps to move you forwards. So
Yeah.
I love this, that we've been talking about goals, because as an accountability coach, this just, there's so many different ways of coming at this, but it is so important. So how you
Mm-hmm.
hold yourself accountable some way, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be within a mastermind, in a community, on a WhatsApp chat with somebody, just even telling your significant other. But we've got to do something, because
Mm-hmm.
if we don't put it out, write it down, do something, then we're going to let it go.
Can I share
So
two more stats, just in
absolutely.
regards to this clear goal framework? So when I was researching this, like I said, it was coming to me as a download, and every week it was like a little bit more was coming. Two things stood out. The first thing is, when you also ask where can people start with writing it down, right? Like a goal
Mhm.
in your head isn't a real goal. That's just a wish, right? So with this framework, there's like an actual process of working through these steps that are like, so identifying the why, and like, how does this challenge you? And like, you're sitting down pen to paper, or if you want to do it digitally, and you're writing it down. Just by writing it down, I found research that shows that you improve your odds of success by 20% just by writing it, not even doing anything else. The second thing is, like you said, with the accountability, there was a 2007 Gale study that was done where this guy looked at folks who set goals versus folks who kind of had the loose goals, and they found that by having accountability, that increases your odds by 40%. And so there's all this research that's showing that if you just write it down and you find someone to help you, like, you're already 60%
Wow, exactly.
and accomplishing your goal. And
Yeah.
so write it down, find someone, and you're on a much likelier path to actually achieving that goal.
That is fantastic. So, Dominiece, as we're wrapping up with this episode, I would love for you to just share with us. I know I'm going to put a link in our show notes about your 5-day email course, but this sounds fantastic. It's 5 days of stress detox. Tell us a little more about what they're going to get when they sign up for that 5-day course.
Yeah, so I am many, many things. And one of the things I am outside of being a coach and a business strategist and is I'm a yoga instructor and I'm a breath work instructor and a meditation instructor, and I have my sound bowls behind me. And so I'm a somatic practitioner. That's a really nice way to sum up all of those things. So I have all of these passions and these loves, but I love the body and I love educating people about how we hold stress and trauma in the body and how our bodies hold on to fear and, you know, some of the things that we talked about. And this was really the inspiration behind starting Moving Still. It was like the more that I learned about stress and trauma and how we hold it, the more that I wanted to shout from the rooftops to people about how we have to release it. And so when it comes to stress, like unresolved stress, unresolved trauma, that manifests into so many physical issues, so many mental and emotional issues if it's left unresolved. And so I'm very passionate about like working through your stress consistently. And another thing is when we're stressed, right? Like that also stops us from connecting to our intuition because the voice of ego and stress and fear is very loud. And that intuitive voice, that guidance that we need is very quiet. And so when you're stressed and you're in a survival state, you can't hear clearly from your intuition and get the guidance that you need. And so I created this 5-day stress detox to help people to turn down fear, turn down the voice of stress, and to turn up their intuition, to allow themselves to be guided, to move to a place where they do feel open enough to go inward for those answers and recognizing that they don't have to look around externally to find everything that they need. And so it's 5 days. Every day I'm giving you a somatic practice. And so there's guided breath work, there's sound healing, and then I'm giving you some accompanying journal questions to just dig into some of the things that oftentimes hold us back and stop us. And so if you're someone who constantly feels like you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, and that's just the state that you exist in, and you feel called to more, this could be a really great place to start with the somatic pieces to help calm the body down and then allow you to ground and then drop into that intuitive voice.
That sounds like such a beautiful gift. So I'm
Thank
going to
you.
make sure to have that link in the show notes. Where else do people find you? Do you want to share your website with us?
Yeah, so I have a new website that I've been working on for a few months that I'm super proud of now. And I started this new website because I do so many things, and I had a website for this, and there's the website for Moving Still. And so domrclifton.com brings everything together. You can go there and learn more about all of my worlds and all of the things that I'm passionate about. And so again, Dom R. Clifton, I know you said you'll drop it in the show notes. That's the best place to learn more and also to get that 5-day stress detox as well.
Fantastic. And then on social media, Instagram, you shared with me, so I'll make sure to have your Instagram link. And then
thank you.
If you are a LinkedIn person, you'll find Dominiece on there, but you'll find her first on Instagram. So this has been a wonderful, gentle, encouraging conversation. So thank you. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
I love the clear. So I'm hoping that people are going to just put this on a slow listen and you know just ponder over how they can do that, and then writing it down and telling somebody is going to put you on the road to success. So Dominiece, thanks for joining me.
Oh, Carol, thank you for having me. What a beautiful conversation. You are an amazing host.
Thank you. So thanks to everybody for listening. If this conversation has inspired you, I invite you to share it with others, because there might just well be somebody that you can think of that might need to hear this, and to be able to grab Dominiece's 5-day course just to help get rid of that stress. So this week, I encourage you to embrace your own unique way of connecting, inspiring, and creating, hence the name of the show, Connect, Inspire, Create. Let your choices bring a sense of ease and flow and joy into your world. Until the next time, take care.